introduce these players again. As Mr. Axelav said, we are in the quarterfinals of this tournament. These are all best of 5s from here on out until the grand finals, which I believe is a best of 7. But here we are on Ohana, which means family in the bottom right-hand location. We have the blue Zerg player Vortix, of course, just narrowly taking out his brother Lucifron. What a story those two guys always have in entering a tournament. And his opponent in the top left-hand location, it's the red Protoss player Creator. Very young Korean player who is very ridiculously, stupidly good at this game. I would consider him, gosh, I
top
think
5 Protoss.
Easily top 5 Protoss in the world right now.
And one of the really cool things about Creator is his name is Creator, and many people credit him with creating so many of the popular builds used in Protoss versus anything. All 3 matchups, especially Protoss versus Terran, but even Protoss versus Zerg and Protoss Mirror. He really comes up with a lot of these great builds, and the thing about his builds is they're all solid macro builds. You know, it's not like he comes up with some new, crazy 4-gate or something. Just very, very solid macro builds, but the timing on when to get upgrades, when to take a third, when to transition to different tech competitions are all extremely well thought out from this guy. It's a very, very deliberate play in his builds.
Yeah, always an exciting player to watch. Hasn't had too tough a time in this tournament thus far. I think we were talking about it a little bit before the cast began. Might have had a little bit of trouble against NMrUUG in the group stages, but who doesn't have trouble against NMrUUG nowadays? Such a good foreigner Zerg. But Creator, again, smooth sailing relatively thus far in this tournament. Hasn't had to play as many games necessarily as other players, considering he pretty much wins most of his games. But yeah, this should be a great challenge against Vortix. Another nice little storyline of Korean versus foreigner. Looking at the rest of the players in the bracket right now, Parting, Suppy, Sen, Hero, Rain, Killer, and of course Vortix and Creator, there's a lot of really good, honestly, Korean Protoss in there. Parting, Hero, Rain, Creator. Like I could easily see them all advancing to the semifinals. So it's now going to start, coming up to, honestly, the foreigner Zergs. Oh my God! I just realized that there's 4 Korean Protosses and 4 foreigner Zergs left.
And they're all playing each other in round of 8.
Yep.
So every round of 8 matches a PvZ, Korean on one side, non-Korean on the other. So far, only one map has been completed in the round of 8, and that has been Suppy versus Party, and Suppy taking the first map versus Party, a great win for the American Zerg. But here we are, Vortex maybe trying to duplicate his fellow non-Korean success against Creator on Ohana. Both players open up very standardly so far. Yeah,
not too surprising to see. Of course, we have seen some fancier builds on Ohana from the Protoss players recently. We've seen some complete wall-ins without a cancellation. Of course, Creator's going to cancel that. There it is. Just wants to make sure those 3 Zerglings don't run by. That can be a very annoying thing to deal with in the early stages of a PvZ. Of course, every single second counts, especially when nowadays the 2-base Protoss builds are refined to like the millisecond. And if a Zerg can disrupt that in any way, it's going to be a great thing. And speaking of which, killing a probe there, which initially, maybe a few months ago, we'd be like, all right, no big deal. But nowadays, again, the 2-base timings have to be absolutely perfect against the Zerg players. So nice little snag there by Vortix.
It is, and every little kill like that, I mean, it might only add 5 seconds of a delay to the Protoss as the game goes on, or maybe even 10 seconds. But those 5 or 10 seconds can be a big deal. I mean, we've seen games where the force fields come down, and a few seconds earlier or later would actually make a huge, huge difference. We're yet to see, either of these players commit to a tech path. Creator is just starting that first unit. It's going to be a sentry. Creator really likes to take third bases, but I've seen him do it both behind, like, a Robotics and War Prism, and also Stargate play. So I think this tournament he's been using more of the Robotics third base than going for these really insanely strong 3-base timing attacks. One of the games against NMrUUG I saw him play was he actually did a 2.5-base time attack. He never took the gas to the third. I think he only half saturated it and just cranked out this massive Blink Stalker Immortal Sentry Force, and which is a really, really tight time. It hits so fast. Let's see if he has that in store for us on Ohana. Adding a 3rd and 4th gas, as well as a +1 weapons, but no tech building yet established.
It should be coming down fairly soon. We're approaching that time. He's approaching 100 gas, and there is the Robotics facility placed down. Still have yet to really realize what he's going to be doing with this. Of course, The Immortal All-In immediately comes to mind. Ohana, very good a map for that strategy. There's a lot of land masses in the middle that you can hug with your Sentry Immortal army. It's not too long of a distance to get to your opponent's side of the map, at least compared to like a Daybreak. And then if you can get inside your opponent's natural expansion with a bunch of sentries, and if you've been untouched across the map, you can like pretty much automatically win the game. But also likely perhaps some type of Warp Prism play. Of course, bringing the Warp Prism to your opponent's main base, doing some shenanigans there. But that being said, only 3 gateways being added on, and he has both of his gases at his natural expansion. He's still making those probes. Are we to that point where he needs to cut them yet?
He's not going for that Immortal at this point. I mean, the robotics facility was actually about a minute late if you really wanted to crank out a super fast Immortal in. He really prioritized the 3rd and 4th gas before the robotics. He also got plus 1 weapons fairly early, and now he's even getting Twilight Council. This looks to be just a very safe 3rd base. Behind Blink Stalker Observer. And the goal of this build is, because it's taking the 3rd not super fast, Zergs can often, have to prepare for 2-base timing if they don't scout your probe levels accurately. And then also you have Blinks. You can deal with Mulis. You can also put some presence out on the map of Blink Stalkers, but then also be able to escape. So you're not really committing yourself to a push, and you can macro upon it very easily.
And you have the ability to scare your opponent. Vortix not necessarily able to scout what's going on here. Only as a Ling at his opponent's third base. Sure, that can tell you a lot, but again, it's ideal if you can spot the gases of your opponent at the natural, if you can spot the tech building, if you can spot the number of probes, but Vortix doesn't really have any overlords in position to do that.
A lot of speedlings, though. He's got crossing the map, and just in hot from the press, Sully wins game 2 against Parting. Zergny's going first round here.
Oh, yeah, they are, but it looks like Creator should have enough. So Suppy wins game 2. Is that, are they 1-1 now? Oh,
Suppy's
2-0
over Parting. Heading on to Game 3 shortly. I believe that's on stream number 4.
That's amazing.
So that's going to be a great game, but of course Vortex's Creator, a great game as well. Vortex already going for those Infestors, adding in Roaches. Creator getting at third base, continuing pro production, Immortals, Blink Stalkers. I think he's going to go for that 3-base Immortal Sentry Blink Stalker push, but Vortex, he should have Infestors out in time to deal with this.
Yeah, Infestor's instrumental against dealing with this crazy Zealot Immortal Sentry stuff.
And as soon as I say I think he's going to go for Immortal Blink Stalker push, he adds in that Robox support bay, proving that he's got a couple tricks up his sleeve. So he actually also probably has too many probes to even do that push at this point anyway. What is his probe count at exactly?
62.
Oh yeah, this is definitely a late macro game. Typically, a Protoss will stop at 55 to 60 for that 2.5 base timing. Vortex, though, he's still creating some map presence. He wants to make sure that Creator's got to be a little bit afraid to stay back at home. Roach Speed just finishing up. Observer keeping track of those units. Infestors being produced, immediately getting to 7th and 8th gases. I love seeing this. The Infestors are so key to dealing with Protoss in the later stages of the game. So getting up those extra gases really help with that production level. No Hive yet on the way.
Yeah.
So we might see more of the same style we see a lot from Killer, who's been doing very well against Protoss, which is very heavy Infestor aggression. And using Roaches and Zergins to kind of buy time to get Infested Terrans up, and then Infested Terrans are really your key damage dealer here. But no, Vortex throwing down mass spine crawlers. Surely we're going to see a Hive very soon.
I'm a little, really actually surprised that the Hive hasn't started yet. Of course, look at all those drones in that production. 16 drones in production. That'll increase that count quite a bit. There's the Spire, which means the Hive should be started now. There it is.
Okay, so a 12-minute Hive. Not too bad at all. Upgrading Zergin attack as well. Actually, that's a fairly late Zergin attack. Really prioritizing this unit production and drone production throughout this game up until this point. But that's going to allow him to, it's only 12 minutes in the game. You said 150 food, and this is 150 food with a ton of spine crawlers. If those were units, he would probably be maxed by now. So definitely a fast pseudo-max, we'll call it, from Vortex, having the power of a maxed army defensively, at least with those spine crawlers, but not quite maxed yet, as well as Hive Tech. 1-2 upgrades on the way for Vortex. Creator with that 3rd attack coming.
6 gateways on the way too from him.
I think he's probably going to pause or maybe try to deny 4th, but his main battle, his main strike is going to wait for that +3 attack. Creator is one of those players who loves to time. He loves to time the engagement perfectly. We'll see. Actually, he'll probably move out. And I remember Nurture was saying one of the games he played Creator at is that the +3 weapons finished 0.5 seconds into the battle. Like the first volley was on +2 weapons, but it was timed so well that it actually finished before that second volley took place. We'll see if Creator has that in store. And you mentioned Warp Prism, still not quite on the map yet, but we're sure to see maybe some distraction attempts with that while the main force goes in for a big push.
Yeah, and this is going to be really nicely timed because the Greater Spire is just now beginning, and Creator has seen all of this. His vision, he has the Greater Spire in his sight, so he knows exactly what's going on. And let's see how many Colossi here. He has 2, so once he loses those, he can potentially just invest into the ground army, just try to overwhelm Vortix that way. And it's going to be a challenge to try to deal with that. Now, he does have a lot of spines, does have a lot of infestors, but again, these Lings and Roaches really don't represent a lot of meat, especially against a composition like this from Creator. It's going to come down to the reinforcements that Vortix can put on the field and how many Broodlords he can get out. But it looks like Creator has decided it's time to go, advancing towards his opponent's middle left-hand location. Plenty of spines there. Decent fungal goes onto the Protoss army. Vortix trying to engage this cost efficiently, but all these Colossi doing so much damage here from Creator, maybe extending a little bit too far, trying to get the splash damage done onto those infested Terrans, but it looks like Vortix doing a great job against this army so far.
Just the Spine Crawlers helped out so much in mass infested Terrans. Creator, though, keeping almost all of his Stalkers alive. And, you know, Vortix has a lot of food, but almost all that's in Roach production. Creator with the War Prism in the main, maybe his next rally will be there. Pushing forward with the Spine Crawlers, Vortix might have to give up this 4th base.
Yeah, I mean, I see he has so many gateways on the field. Momentarily, he should be warping in at that War Prism. Right now, though, focusing on denying this 4th base, as you said. Infestors trying to throw down the Fungal Ghost, but Vortix losing quite a few Infestors in this engagement. Down to 2 Infestors. You need to keep those alive, and Creator charging forward with all of these Stalkers. Vortix doesn't have an answer just yet. Sure, the Greater Spire is done, and now 4 Broodlords are in production, but he's going to have to sacrifice his 4th, sacrifice plenty of drones there, and still no Warpins in the main here for Creator.
I think Creator smells blood in the water, doesn't want to split up his army, wants to go for one giant push here. So many Stalkers with +3 weapons pushing in. Vortix has the Spine Cores, but most of them are out of position. The Broodlords, Creator sees the Broodlords morphing, isn't going to go for them.
Oh, they're pretty vulnerable here, and that's exactly what Creator's going to do. Blinking forward, targeting those down Roaches, trying to get their damage done. Infestors don't have too much energy left, and Creator reinforcing with nothing but Blink Stalkers at this point, and there's a Warpin of some Zealots getting scooped up pretty quickly by the Broodlings and the Spine Crawlers, but Creator's going to be forced away.
Wow, a great move by Vortix there. That was really cool. Creator tried to focus down those cocoons, but I think the shots that would have killed the cocoons were in the air when the Broodlords morphed, and so they didn't quite finish them off in time. Those 4 Broodlords really paid off in space.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, Creator, they were morphed in a great position there on the high ground. A little bit tricky for Creator to get up close and personal with them, but Creator is not done. Sending more Stalkers down toward the 3rd, but, I mean, he denied his opponent's 4th, so at what point are you content with the damage you did, and at what point do you decide to back away and maybe take your own 4th?
Ooh, he's tried to back away there, but a massive fungal got most of his Stalkers. He's got to get out of there because there's so many Roaches, Broodlords backing them up. Stalkers cannot compete against this mixed competition of Vortix. Creator, though, he's going to try to keep pushing in. I think he's afraid to give Vortix space to build more Infestors because if we look what Creator has tech-wise, yes, he's got great upgrades, but he can only produce Stalkers and Colossi, and, you know, that works great against predominantly Roach-based armies or Zerg and Infestor, but as the Broodlord count gets higher and higher, it's very, very difficult to deal with it with just this composition. Creator is going to try to get an economic advantage, though, taking his 4th base, and sometimes you can just overpower the cost-efficient Broodlord Infestor via just mass Warpins, but that requires a stronger economy than your opponent. Right now, both have equal workers, both actually trying to establish their 4th bases, so very, very even as far as income's going so far.
Yeah, Creator adding on more and more Stalkers, more and more Colossi. Those units are +3 on the weapons, +1 on the armor. Meanwhile, looking at the upgrades of the Zerg player, got +2 ground carapace, and he hasn't really been focusing on the upgrades too much beyond that. Looks like Lings have that +1 melee attack, no missile attack upgrades here from Vortix just yet. So I feel like Creator does have that upgrade advantage, and with so many Stalkers on the field, they have so much utility at this point in time. Of course, the important thing being making sure you have an answer to the Lings and potential Infestors, which the Colossus represents. So I feel like it's going to come down to positioning as this game goes along, and Vortix is scrambling to try to add on more bases, trying to get more gas so we can really start getting that critical mass of Broodlords and Infestors.
Vortix getting the Overlord/Overseer speed upgrade. He also constructed 3 Overseers. He could be a little bit worried about Dark Templar, or he could be trying to do some get some mass contaminate prepared in case the Mothership is being produced. You haven't seen that too often, but that's something some players were talking about earlier. Starting to catch up on upgrades, and he actually is max. He's looking to push it. Creator has to defend his 4th base, but I mean, Vortix has got such a good position with those Broodlords. I
don't see the Lings doing too much with this Colossi in the air, but does Vortix have does Creator have an answer to these Broodlords? Coming forward with the Lings is a Vortix doing a lot of damage to the Broodlords, throwing down Fungals onto the Protoss army, and Creator trying to blink back the Stalkers, trying to target fire down those Lings with the Colossi, trying to maximize his damage output, but Vortix has so much stuff, he's not stopping. The Broodlords doing a ridiculous amount of damage. Finally, the blink underneath the Broodlords, but Creator is running out of Stalkers slowly but surely, and trying to target fire down the Broodlords, trying to reinforce course, with Stalkers and Colossi, but Vortix has so much stuff.
Vortix just has too much there. The fourth base goes down. Vortix might actually, looks like he's going to back away here, saying, you know what?
GG from Creator. Wow, Vortix losing his fourth base. He was on the ropes. Only had 4 Broodlords at one point at his natural expansion, and it looks like he was on the edge. But then was able to saturate himself. I'm not sure the proper word. Able to establish his position. Maybe Creator overextended a little bit too much with those Stalkers. I mean, again, he came down that ramp towards the third. Vortix got some key fungals, and then from there, Creator just couldn't get enough units on the field to defend the follow-up push there from Vortix.
It was